ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ। ਸਲੋਕ ਮਹੱਲਾ ਪੰਜਵਾ। ਕੋਟ ਬਿਘਨ ਤਿਸ ਲਾਗਤੇ, ਜਿਸਨੂੰ ਵਿਸਰੈ ਨਾਉ। ਨਾਨਕ ਅਨ ਦਿਨ ਬਿਲਪਤੇ, ਜਿਉ ਸੁਣੈ ਘਰ ਕਾਉ। ਮਹੱਲਾ ਪੰਜਵਾ। ਪਿਰੀ ਮਿਲਾਵਾ ਜਾਥੀਐ, ਸਾਈ ਸੁਹਾਵੀ ਰੁੱਤ। ਘੜੀ ਮਹੋਤ ਨਹਿ ਵੀਸਰੈ, ਨਾਨਕ ਰਵੀਐ ਨਿਤ ਪੌੜੀ। ਸੂਰਬੀਰ ਵਰਿਆਮ, ਕਿਨੇ ਨਾ ਹੋੜੀਐ। ਫੌਜ ਸਤਾਣੀ ਹਾਠ, ਪੰਚਾ ਜੋੜੀਐ। 10 ਨਾਰੇ ਅਵਧੂਤ, ਦੇਨ ਚਮੋੜੀਐ। ਜਿਣ ਜਿਣ ਲੈਣ ਰਲਾਏ, ਇਹੋ ਇਨਾ ਲੋੜੀਐ। ਤ੍ਰੈ ਗੁਣ ਇਨ ਕੈ ਵਸ, ਕਿਨੇ ਨਾ ਮੋੜੀਐ। ਭਰਮ ਕੋਟ ਮਾਇਆ ਖਾਈ, ਕਹੋ ਕਿਤ ਬਿਦ ਤੋੜੀਐ। ਗੁਰਪੂਰਾ ਆਰਾਧ, ਬਿਖਮ ਦਲ ਫੋੜੀਐ। ਹਉ ਤਿਸ ਅੱਗੇ ਦਿਨ ਰਾਤ, ਰਹਾ ਕਰ ਜੋੜੀਐ। ਗੁਰਪੂਰਾ ਆਰਾਧ, ਬਿਖਮ ਦਲ ਫੋੜੀਐ। ਹਉ ਤਿਸ ਅੱਗੇ ਦਿਨ ਰਾਤ, ਰਹਾ ਕਰ ਜੋੜੀਐ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, today's ਪਾਵਨ ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ from Sachkhand Sri Harmandir Sahib is on Ang 522, blessed to us by Dhan Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Sache Padshah. Today, Guru Arjan Dev Ji Padshah Ji, they share this beautiful words of wisdom with us. Salok Mahalla Panjava. ਕੋਟ ਬਿਗਨ ਤਿਸ ਲਾਗਤੇ। ਕੋਟ, ਕੋਟ translating to millions. Kote bigan means obstacles. Kote bigan tis lagte. They're saying those people that just know visare know, those that have forgot the name of God in their life, can they end up having millions of challenges come their way in life. Bigan, there's so many obstacles that come this lagate, that come and stand in their way, Sangat ji. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Pachi then say, kende Nanak an din bilpate, jo sunye ghar kaun. Kende then an din, an means night, din day. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Pachi saying here, kende night and day bilpate. Bilpate means they are in pain, crying. Jo, just like in the jo sunya. Sunya Sangat ji means a place that is sunya, bhav jada khali hobe, that is empty, that has been deserted. Kende sunya ghar kaun, a house that has been completely deserted and that is empty. Kaun, kaun Sangat ji translates to a kaan, to a crow, and referring to just like a crow is in this empty house, croaking away, meaning making all that noise. In that same way, saying when we haven't got that connection to Vaheguru Ji, when we don't keep the remembrance of Vaheguru Ji within our mind, don't remain connected to God's name, then what happens? Just like you hear that crow croaking away in that empty house and that sound is echoing. In that same way, Appa andro from inside, our inside is empty. Our inside is empty like that house empty of gun, empty of qualities, empty of love, empty of compassion, empty of forgiveness, khima, empty of sat, of truthful living, of sangatji contentment, of santok. So imagine living in such a house within ourselves, empty of all those beautiful qualities that actually makes a person. And then without all of those qualities, of course we're going to be suffering. Without those qualities, of course, then life is gonna feel difficult for us. Then everything is gonna become an obstacle in our life. We're gonna look at everything as an obstacle in our life then. Doesn't matter what happens. Doesn't matter what comes in our way. We don't see as being something beautiful. We always see in that way of that glass being half empty. Never then see as being half full. That not saying thank you to whatever situation comes in our life, always looking at the downside, always looking at the negative, then everything then becomes an obstacle. Because Sangat ji, look at Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji's life. If you look at it on the outside, there's many obstacles. But Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji does not look at it as an obstacle. Because it's about our perception of life. And Sangat Ji, that's why I was thinking about it this morning as well. That one thing that the Dalai Lama shared, it really always hits my heart. And I share it many of times. When asked the question, when somebody said to him, why are there so many religions today in today's age? And they gave a figure in the hundreds of even being like kind of the main. Obviously we know we've got the major religions, but then even though there's other religions that are quite known now. And he said there's something like 200 and whatever. The Dalai Lama, as he does, he laughed. He laughed and he said, there's not hundreds. He said there's as many human beings they are on this planet. There is many religions as human beings on this planet. So if there's something if there's in the region of 7 to 8 billion human beings on this planet, goes, that's how many religions there are. Why? Because every person has got their own perception. There's three things: somebody's perception on life, somebody's experience of life. So these are the things that actually form somebody's way of looking at life, and that becomes their own little personal religion. You could have Sangat Ji, you could have Muslims, you could have Sikhs, you could have a room full of Sikhs. You could sit 10 Sikhs in one room, and they'll have a completely different perception of looking at something. They'll have a completely different experience of, even though they're following the same dharam, even though they're all following Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Paatshah. But somebody's more connected there's somebody's one of them within them. They connect more to Mata Tart Mahat. They connect more to the earth, to the elements. And for them, everything is about connecting to the nature. And these are the Panktiyas they connect to, because that's their experience, and that's how they are looking at life. Sangat Ji. And then there's three things that when I was contemplating this morning, and it wasn't for the hukamnaama, it's just for me personally, but then it's obviously come out now. So I've shared two things, but the third thing is dependent on the sharpness of somebody's intellect, of how we interpret something. And the way somebody might interpret this, even katha, this explanation, will be different for different people, depending on their own buddhi, depending on their intellect. So this is what determines somebody's life, and it becomes their own religion, even being within a major religion as such. So Sangat Ji, that obstacle in somebody's life, it comes down to somebody's experience. somebody's own perception of how they look at a situation, somebody's understanding of something depending on their intellect. But Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji, when the seas came back of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, Sache Paatshah, Bhai Jeta Ji brings back the seas of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Paatshah Ji all the way from Delhi to Anandpur Sahib. But such a humble Gursikh that when he places Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Paatshah Ji seas forward before Gobind Rai at the age of 9, Mata Gujri Ji and Mata Nanaki Ji. Mata Nanaki Ji is the mother of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. Mata Gujri Ji, the wife of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, Nome Paatshah, 9th Guru, and their beloved son, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. But Bhai Jeta Ji Govind stands behind all the Sangat right at the back. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji asked the question. They said, how many Sikhs were there in Chandni Chowk? How many of them came forward? Bhai Jeta Ji said, I can't say for sure how many Sikhs were there. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji, at that time, look at the situation. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Paatshah Ji's cease has come back. They could have said that, look at this, look at my life. I'm only 9 years old. I didn't get to see my father for the first 4 to 5 years of my life because my father was in Assam in East. And they were there resolving the disputes of the local chiefs and Rajas over there. So they said, I didn't get to see my father for that many years in the beginning of my life. I've just about come back. I've settled back. I've only had about 3 years with my father and my father's gone. What type of life is this? Am I cursed? Absolutely not. Did Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji did not look at the situation in that way. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji took that situation and completely switched it around and looked at it in that way. Because the truth is, Sangat Ji, we might go through experiences, we might go through something in life. But the one thing that we all have got, we've got that choice. But that choice is dependent on our frame of mind, of how we have been trained and programmed to look at situations. But Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji, let's take inspiration of how did Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji look at that situation. They took that situation and Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji said, if that Sikh wasn't able to be recognized in that crowd to come forward and that was able to stand out for everyone to be able to see that this is a Sikh of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sache Paatshah Ji, to be able to come forward to pick up their cease. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji said, then I will create such an identity for my Sikh that even in a crowd of 1,000, a crowd of tens of thousands, lakhan bhave utthe khade hon, even if there is hundreds of thousands, my Sikh will stand out and nobody will be able to not be able to see this Gursikh of mine. Everybody will be able to see this Gursikh of mine. I'll create such an idea. Look at this. Then in the eyes of the world, an obstacle. Seeing their father cease at the age of 9, only their head coming back because they've given their entire life, they've sacrificed their life for another faith. For what? For human rights. For humanity. Because Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Sache Paatshah Ji, they didn't allow for anyone to be trodden over, for anyone to be discriminated against. Today we talk about, Sangaji, we're talking about, there's a lot of talk by racism, about all of these things, but the truth is the Guru always stood up for these things themselves. And there's many of people that today that may be standing up for these things, but the truth is they are also stuck at some level in that layer of ego as well. But Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Sache Paatshah Ji, they practiced that, showed that to the world. And when Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji saw that the cease has come back, they turned that situation around and they looked at it in the sense of, yes, I've had to sacrifice, my father sacrificed their life, and now I'm going to have to live without a father, but I can make this into our strength. I will create such an identity that we stand out. But what did they do? Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji, they didn't get depressed, but instead they took that situation and they took it and they jumped over that hurdle without any problems. They created an army. They made that situation into their strength. Sangha Ji, they made that into their strength. They created an army that then fought against tyranny. They created those like Baba Banda Singh Bahadur. They created those like Baba Deep Singh Ji, that no matter what happened, even at the age of an old age of 75, some say even up to 80, that went all the way to Sri Harmandir Sahib and gave their cease and was fighting like a ripening youth. And when Babaji's cease got cut off, they still continued having a khanda, having a sword, a double-edged sword in one hand, and they had their head in their other hand, on the palm of their hand, and they continued fighting. They continued fighting for dharam, for righteousness, Sangat Ji. Because Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji created and made that time into their strength. There's some people, Sangat Ji, there's many of people that my wife was sharing with me once that she went onto a conference from work. And she's saying that she was so inspired by this lady that now is leading conferences, is now inspiring other social workers. By her own experience of life, she's done so well because she experienced being abused when she was younger. She experienced going through sexual abuse, experiencing physical abuse, emotional abuse. Spoke about this in yesterday's katha. She experienced all of that, but she didn't let it bring her down. Yes, she had difficulties growing up, but eventually ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਹੋਸ਼ ਸੰਭਾਲੀ, when she awakened, Sangat Ji, then she made that into her strength. And instead today, her experiences, instead of allowing it to destroy her life, she's allowed it to become a strength, and she's actually inspiring thousands and thousands of people through her experiences and bringing awareness about these situations of how to be more alert, how to avoid these situations, or how to deal with it. Not being afraid of actually coming out and speaking out against these things. And Sangat Ji, so over here, Sache Paatshah Ji, this wasn't at all anything I was planning to talk about, but it's talking about. But then there's those that Nanak andin bilpate. But there's those that are crying inside, Jo sunye kar kaun, that do we want to be like that crow that is constantly crying in this empty house without having those qualities inside, and always moaning about situations and always looking at the glass half empty and thinking that, you know what, oh, look at this big and look at this obstacle, look at this situation now what? But instead embracing the name of God inside and building on those qualities inside of us, and then allowing these challenges to become our strengths in life. So our Sadhguru Ji Sache Paatshah Ji saying to us, kende mahalla panjwa piri milawa jathiye. Kende when I meet with that piri milawa, kende when I meet with my piri, my husband Lord Vaheguru Ji, kehn lage then that kende piri milawa jathiye. Kende sai means that. And remember, when it means God, then we add a bindi to it, then it becomes sai. It will be spelt most of the time the same way, but sai without bindi is that. Kende sai suhavi rut. Kende that rut, that season is beautiful for me. That season, when that moment I meet God. Remember, Sangat Ji, sometimes there's one where Sache Paatshah Ji talk about, once that droplet of water goes into the ocean and that's it, you become the ocean, then there is no separating again. But Sangat Ji, there is that when we have little moments with God. So we've not fully merged with God, but we have little moments with God. And those little moments for us, those moments are the most beautiful seasons of our life. Sangat Ji, what are those moments? every time, Sangat Ji, I act out of compassion. When I see somebody suffering, and I want to bring that suffering to an end, I want to ease that pain, and I act out of that compassion, Sangat Ji, I've just had a beautiful season. I've just experienced a beautiful Rut. I've just met Waheguru Ji for that moment. Any time, Sangat Ji, when I see that I've let go of something, I've been able to forgive. No matter what somebody has done to me, I see it could be even that person that has raped me. Sangat Ji, you might think that these examples are extreme. Absolutely not. You'd be shocked. With even amongst the Punjabi community, the amount of people, when you get talking to them, that have actually experienced sexual abuse of when they were little, be it from a cousin or a family member, an uncle or whatever, you'll be shocked how many they are. So these aren't far-fetched examples. But actually seeing, being able to be very careful with this, Sangat Ji. There's one thing is being able to accept it. But forgiveness, remember, comes when that person is taking active steps and moving forward, when they have moved away from being that person now. Because remember, forgiveness is not in that place where that person has not moved forward, but we can still be in acceptance and let go. But forgiveness is something that comes naturally when that person moves forward. Because up until then, we still need to remain active. And something still needs to be done about that situation. Because Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paat Ji would say, Kende zulm karna paap, kende zulm sehna us to bhi vadda paap. Because they said that committing a crime is a sin. This says, but to be able to look and to be able and to tolerate crime of somebody else, kende that's even a greater sin than that. So in that moment, we need to be active in bringing justice into that situation. And B, that person might need to, we go down the route of law, and that person may need to go to prison for it. And we fight a case. Why? Because they still continue to put other people's lives in danger. And that moment, that we've been able, so being able to let go is different, but forgiveness is in that place when they walk forward. Something they receive. And in that moment, Sangat Ji, if I see somebody's move forward, but I still hold on to it, that is damaging to me. But the moment, no matter even if it's that person that has raped me, and then I'm able to shower that forgiveness, because they've now moved forward from that situation. In that place, Sangat Ji, in that place, there is God. We've just had a beautiful season, experienced God, Sangat Ji, from inside. But remember, like I said, forgiveness is a natural occurrence of God's laws. But Sangat Ji, but even if there is one thing, so we may still need to be active about someone that is still endangering other people and carrying out those acts. So for that, but still in that place, we can still be away from hatred. Because in hatred, we'll end up taking revenge. But Sangat Ji, where there's no hatred, but even and acting out of compassion for that person, because we know they're suffering so much to be able to carry out such acts, in that place, Sangat Ji, will actually be able to bring justice with a clear head on whatever that is then for them. If it's reformation of some sort, of actually working, or even if it means that they have to go to prison for it, and whatever it is, be very careful in being able to identify the differences and what these things are. So Sangat Ji, Sache Paach kende pir milawa jatiye sai suhavi rotte. That season is beautiful. When I experience these little moments with God, kende kadi maut nahi visre, kende not even for a kadi, meaning Sangat Ji, for even a moment, not even for a little moment, kadi maut nahi visre, that may I forget Waheguru Ji. I don't want to forget Waheguru Ji even for that little moment. For it takes for me to blink my eye, Nanak, I want to be enjoying Raviye. I want to be constantly experiencing Waheguru Ji. Not a little moment I want to have of hatred inside of me. Because the moment I have hatred, then I'm actually separated from Waheguru Ji. That moment that I have that ill thought towards somebody, that I hope something bad happens to them because of what they did to me, then I've just separated myself from Waheguru Ji. Kadi mahot na visare. But I don't want to separate from you, not even for a little moment, Waheguru Ji, because then I'll end up like that crow in that empty house. I don't want to be that crow. And then Sache Paatshah Ji says, Pauree, but you've got a big fight on your hands. Because Surbir Varyam Kine na hodiye. You know you've got a fight against who? These are Surbirs. These are great warriors. Surme means these great warriors. Varyam means Bahadur. They are next level how strong they are. Who's Maharaji on about? So we've got to put up this great fight, Maharaji. There's hardly anyone that has been able to control them and be able to withstand them, because they are next level, Sangat Ji. Who? Fauj Satani, their army is so Satani, is so strong. Their heart, their army is Hatili. Hatili, Sangat Ji, means they are so stubborn minded, they won't move from their place. Who? Pancha, Jodiye. When these five come, Jodiye come together. When these 5 soldiers come together and form an army, they are crazy. They are so powerful and they are so stubborn. Sangat Ji, who? Kaam, lust, desires, krodh, anger, lobh, greed, more attachment, hankar, arrogance. When these 5 come together, whoa, this is a battle now. Kende dasanari avdoot. Can they never mind just a normal householder person that is going about their life? They've obviously got no chance. They said, but what about the avdoots? Avdoots are the renunciates, the ones that have actually given everything up and become meditators in jungles. Even them, they've not been able to get a grip of. Den chamodiye. Chamodiye, Sangat Ji, means that they've even attached onto them. They've even got hold of them where they can. What's happened? Das Nari. Nari Sangat Ji means Indriya. Indriya Sangat Ji means our senses. Here is talking about the senses in the Das 5. We've got obviously the 5 senses which give us Gyan, which give us information. So, and then we've got Panchakarma Indriya that actually do action. So, form out karam. Sangat Ji, and that das nari, the pleasures of them are so intense that even somebody that is trying to become spiritual, even they get hold of them. Even they get led into the pleasure of these senses. And Sangat Ji, the senses of what? So, eyesight. Even they can't sometimes help looking through lust, eyes of lust. Listening to things like Nindya, so just count sight, listening to Sangat Ji. Number 2, listening to things like slander and listening to my own praise. These are they become so pleasurous, like just wanting to, it's tasty. And then taste. Sangat Ji, how many people do you see that have actually given up their lives, dedicated their lives on the path of God, and they've given up all their normal household way of life, and some of them are just living in maybe Gurdwara now, or whoever it may be. But you'll see them that they're overweight. Some of them are obese. Why? Because of the tongue avdoot. Even the avdoots, even those that you may see within Sikhi that don't get married and given up their lives, staying in Godre, but still haven't been able to give up the pleasure of the tongue. 3, taste. And what determines what they eat is their taste. What determines how much they should eat is their taste, Sangat Ji. And then you've got Sho. Sho meaning saparsh. Saparsh meaning touch. And then being lured by the sense of touch, of wanting to touch other people's bodies and experiencing that sensation, that pleasure. when you have that intimate relationship with someone, not being able to, and that ends up then controlling their life, that is leading their life. And then we've got Sangat ji, the sense of the smell. So the panj ho gaya, sanu jiun nahi dende. We've got such a massive army that is fighting against us. And then Sangat ji, then you've got your panj karm indre, then speech, then the way we end up speaking to somebody, that ends up winning us over as well. End up being harsh and rough to someone with our speech. Sangat ji, then we've got karm, then another karma indra is our hands. So the motion of what we do with our hands, and then feet, where we go with our feet. So Sangat ji, 8 ho gaye. And then the dusre do are for our saririk kirya, and then the other 2 are for our natural waste, where we pass that through. Sangat ji, so in this way we've got a lot that is very challenging for us. Dasanari Audut Den Chamuriya, they've even got a hold of even those people that are apparently on this religious path. Can they they get victory? Jinn means victory. They win over people. The Panj Chor do, and jinn land rely and not rely, and they actually make you one of theirs. So you start to become anger. You start to think you are anger, and you'll say, yeah, look, I'm just, I'm an angry type of guy. I lose my temper quite quick. Yeah, I'm quite greedy. And all the narala there, you start thinking you're actually one of them. It's crazy, Sangat ji, what they do to us. And I will say, yeah, I'm quite arrogant. I like to remain at the top in it. Don't like anyone else to be up here with me. Can they land rely? Eho ena lodiye. Can they, that was their lodiye? Oh, that's what they wanted, and they end up winning us. Can they tragun inke vas kine? Can they the tragun the rajo, tamo, sato, gun? Those 3, Sangat ji, the qualities that their whole Maya has been made in. Can they then tragun inke vas kine? Can they then eat the Panj Chor? They have the tragun under their control as well. Look at that. So Sangat ji, they even keep that under their control. How can the Panj Chor have? How can the Panj Chor, Sangat ji, have Sato Gun under their control? Sato Gun is, remember, that higher quality of when you become very kind and giving. But in that giving, remember, I've explained before that you but still think what you are giving is you are giving it. It is yours and you've given it. So you're still recognizing yourself to be the giver. So in that way, that still remains the ego and the arrogance of your giving to someone. So in that sense, Sangat ji, that tragun inke vas kine, that they've even got hold of the tragun, those qualities inside of you, of the Maya that is made up of kine. Tragun inke vas kine na modiye. Sangat ji, maaf karna, ithe bisram lagna. Tragun inke vas kine na modiye. Nobody's able to just win them over. What's going on? Param court Maya khai. This court, this fortress of Param, of doubt, Maya khai. Khai, Sangat ji, is that is that trench that is made and dug up around the fortress, and then they fill it with water, stopping the enemy coming in. Kende agge Param court Maya khai. This the moat of illusion and the fortress of Param, of doubt, how am I meant to break this? The only way, Satguru Ji Guru Arjan Dev Ji Pachi say, Gurpura Arad, can they always meditate on the perfect Guru? Can they become Dal Fodiye? Can they become Dal? This Dal, this army that is full of Bikam, that is full of Vishavikar, that make you do really, make you carry out misdeeds. They'll be smashed if you meditate on your Guru. How do I meditate on my Guru? Tis agga din raat. Sangat ji, here, means I, not ego. So when it's not when it's ego, then we don't put the bindi on it. We say and here it's referring to me. Then we add a bindi to the Uda Ankar, we say, Haan, this agge, din raat. So day and night before my Guru, what do? Raha kar jodiye, I remain with my hands folded together. Kar means hands, jodiye means put together. I remain with my hands folded together before my Guru, Sangat Ji. And what does that mean? That whatever situation comes in my life, I always have my hands folded together before my Guru, meaning that whatever my Guru says to me, that I've always got my hands folded to that. That when whatever situation occurs, instead of letting the things like hatred come before me, I fold my hands and I say to my Guru that Jehe khima tehe aap, that you speak to me, and I've got my hands together and I say, where there is forgiveness, there is you. So Sangaji, I've always got my hands together to my Guru and I bring that into my life. In this way, I'll start smashing them into pieces, Sangatji. Then no matter what comes, then if greed comes to me, then I'll fold my hands and I'll say, Sunaya Sat Santokh Gyan. I'll say that, hey Satguruji, Sunaya, that I'm going to listen to your bhajan. Sunaya, listen. I'm going to listen to you, my Guru. Sunaya, what am I going to do instead of greed? Sunaya Sat Sasa Tata Tatino Ankar. I'm going to become giving. I'm going to embrace that what you have blessed us with of seva, of giving selflessly without having a desire of wanting anything in return. Sunaya Sat, hands together to you all the time. I'll never go like this, always like this. Sunaya Sat Santokh, and I'll bring contentment into my life by giving to others. And in that way, then greed comes nowhere near me. I start to then smash this army into pieces. Sunaya Sat Santokh Gyan, all the wisdom I take from you by listening to you, my Guru. Sangat Ji, in this way, let us do ardas that before this great army, allow me to always have my hands folded before my Guru, allowing my Guru to speak to me in every situation that comes to me in my life, no matter how harsh it is, but I'm able to switch that situation into becoming my strength, especially if somebody has done something that is so nasty to us, to even to the extent of rape. Let us not let it become our trauma, which will then destroy our life in such a way where in the future it will cause so many bodily diseases for us. So you can watch the 26th part of Salok Sanskriti to understand that on a more deeper level. Why they've already done that to me physically, why now allow them to determine the rest of my life, to ruin my life more? Why am I going to make them into my Simran? Why am I going to make them into my remembrance? Instead, I will look with clarity and bring them to justice. Make sure that they are reformed in whatever way. And Sangat Ji, and whether that, like I said, be prison for them and fighting that case. But I'm not going to allow, I'm going to keep my hands folded to my Guru. And like Guru Gobind Singh Ji Pacha Ji did, every situation they made it into their strength. Remember Sangat Ji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Pacha Ji, even after leaving Anandpur Killa, leaving the fortress of Anandpur, even after the battle of Chamkor, losing their Gursikhs, losing 35 Gursikhs, Maaf karna, it was 37 Gursikhs they lost in Chamkor Gadi. Even after all of that, Sangat Ji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Pacha Ji in absolute Chaddi Kala, when Guru Gobind Singh Ji Pacha Ji said to Mata Sundari Ji, they said, listen, this says that, can they for them, for all the Sikhs that are here before me, कहते वार दिए सुत चार, कहते I've sacrificed my 4 sons for these, कहते बर जीवत कई हजार, कहते इन पुत्रन के शीस पर वार दिए सुत चार, कहते बर कहते just for the sake of these, कहते I have sacrificed my 4 sons, कहते पर look कहते जीवित कई हजार, कहते but look how many I've still got that are living. Still they're looking at the glass half full, not half empty what they've lost. They've always looking at what they've got. Those that always look at what they have still got is called contentment. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Pacha Ji made that their strength, and then they sat there, and then Sangat Ji they took 9 months, 9 days, 9 ਘੜੀਆਂ, and then they recited ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Pacha Ji's Bani, all from memory, from ek onkar to 18 10 20, from memory Sangat Ji, from memory. And they did vyakhya of it in the evenings as well. And Baba Deep Singh Ji, Bhai Mani Singh Ji was the main likhari, main writer. Baba Deep Singh Ji was the sahayata likhari. They look at the way why are we going to allow? Did Guru Gobind Singh Ji did not allow Aurangzeb to take over their mind, and Aurangzeb was not Guru Gobind Singh Ji Pacha Ji. Simran, you did this to my dad. Oh my God, what's happened now? Because of you, I've lost my entire family, my mother, my 4 sons. No. Strength. They came back then to Sangat Ji. They went to Nandir. They went all the way down to South Sangat Ji, and then they look at what they did. They formed an army again. Gursikhs, look, they put Panj Singh together. Banda Singh Bahadur, they became the Jarnail that became the commander of another army, and that went and took and actually put that Nishan Sahib down in that place of that became Fatehgarh Sahib. Look at the strength of Guru Gobind Singh Ji Pacha. So pyareo, these situations that have occurred in our life, what can we do to embrace them and allow it to actually, instead of becoming an obstacle for our entire life, but how can it become a strength for us, where we then inspire many others from our experiences of life. संगत जी, इतनी एक बेनती है प्रवान, एक नहीं पर अनेक कहीं गलतियां हो गई हैं, अनजान बच्चा समझ के बख्श देना। वाहिगुरु जी का